Welcome to Giants Latest. The Giants have announced that they have hired a new running backs coach because they lost their former coach to the Saints, who obviously are building out their new coaching staff. So let's talk a little bit about the Giants' new running backs coach. He actually comes to us from Iowa. And if you guys remember, one of the current Giants running backs, Tyrone Tracy Jr., also came to us from Iowa. So there is some connection there. So the Giants' new running backs coach is Ladell Betts, who is a former running back. He played college football for, of course, Iowa back in 2000s, and then he was drafted to the NFL in 2002 to the Washington Redskins. That's what they were called back then. And since then, he has been coaching. He's been an offensive coordinator, and now he is the running backs coach for the New York Giants. So obviously that was a spot that they had to fill. I do like that they are bringing in someone who obviously has experience at the position and who is going to help out a current player like Tyrone Tracy. And again, would love to hear Tyrone Tracy's point of view on this, but I am sure that he is thrilled to have someone that they have worked together in the past with. Now, something else to know about Betts is that he actually helped one of the current running backs, Caleb Johnson, who had his best year ever. He had a record-breaking season in 2024 where he rushed for over 1,500 yards and had 21 touchdowns. It was the most productive player in the Hawkeyes offense. And I believe that part of that is going to come from his coach, Betts, who is obviously now the Giants' new coach. So I think it's a great move for the Giants. Obviously, like I said, he's got good experience and we need to up our running game this year. The Giants had a good run game last year, but obviously like to see it take it a step further this year. So let's see what Ladell Betts can do for the New York Giants. Moving along here to Jason Pinnock. Obviously, 'tis the season for free agency and re-signings and bringing back former players. So if there are a couple players that I think the Giants should bring back, we'll go through them over the next month or so. But in my opinion, we have to talk about Jason Pinnock today because the Giants are not known for having depth. I think we all know that at this point. And, their defensive backs as a whole is quite young. So something they need to do is bring in some veterans, but I'd like to see them bring back some talent. Now, I am not out here saying that Jason Pinnock is one of the better safeties in the league. I think we can all agree that he is not. However, he has actually done quite well for the Giants in what he's been asked to do. He has been asked to do quite a lot. We've actually seen him rush the quarterback a bit, and a few times he's gotten home and he's gotten some quarterback hits and he's gotten some sacks. So I think that they can do more with him, and I would like to see him build upon that. And the reality is he's going to be a pretty cheap deal. So he knows the system already. He knows the defense. He knows Shane Bowen, and he knows, of course, some of the other players on the defense. So I think it would be a great idea for the Giants to bring him back. He is also quite young, so he's going to have that going for him. And I think that the Giants can really help him get better by bringing in a veteran safety, which is something that I would like to see them do this offseason as well. But I think that the first step should be re-signing Jason Pinnock. It's likely that he's not going to be getting offers from other teams, and you know that you can bring him in for a pretty cheap deal. So I'd like to see that be one of their offseason moves. So if I were the Giants, I'm definitely re-signing safety Jason Pinnock. Let's move over to the quarterback position because we all know this is a very hot topic for the New York Giants. And I think Giants fans as a whole have very differing opinions on what the right move is for them at quarterback. Now, we already talked about Justin Fields, who I think is probably the best option when we talk about free agent quarterbacks for the Giants. But another guy that they have to consider, and from what I'm hearing, it sounds like they are considering and they are going to be in talks with, is Jameis Winston. Now, my favorite thing about Jameis Winston is his personality. And if you have been watching Giants football for a while, there's not a lot of personality on this team. And, when we talk about trusting in the staff in the next segment, I'm not wildly thrilled about this upcoming season, and I hope that changes, but I don't think it's going to be a very exciting season, and I don't think the Giants are going to be busting out a ton of wins. So if that's the case, give me a quarterback who's going to bring some light and excitement to this team and to the fan base, and that's exactly what Jameis Winston is going to do. He is not the best quarterback in the free agency class. He's not the most expensive. He's not the cheapest, and, he's not as good as Aaron Rodgers, to be honest, and Aaron Rodgers is a talk probably for another day. I don't want him coming anywhere near the Giants. But when you talk about talent level, I think we could say that Aaron Rodgers probably has that over Jameis Winston. But what Jameis Winston has is a lot of things. He is mobile and he does have the ability to run. He also is not afraid to throw the ball down the field. And again, like we talk about with this Giants offense, it has been so abysmal the last couple of years. And one of the biggest pain points is that there are zero explosive plays and that the ball is barely ever thrown past 20 yards. And that is something that we need to see. We now have Malik Neighbors. You have to take advantage of that and you have to get this kid the ball. You have to throw him 20+ yard passes down the field. This is going to be the year to do it, to start doing. And I hope it happens more than just 1 year. But you know what I mean? I think that Jameis Winston is going to be a guy who's not afraid to throw the ball down the field and who's going to give a guy like Malik Neighbors the option to go up for a 2020 ball and say, go get it, buddy. And that's something that we need to see more of. And I think if you bring Jameis Winston in, yes, he's fun and he's lighthearted and he's going to bring excitement to the fan base and all of those things, but he's also not a half bad quarterback. The thing that we're going to have to worry about most with Jameis Winston is, of course, the interceptions. But the way I see it is this. Jameis Winston is a bridge quarterback. You're not spending a crap load of money like you would on Matt Stafford, who ultimately is going to be a bridge quarterback. He's not the Giants quarterback of the future, and Jameis Winston is going to be the same thing. So he's going to be an affordable bridge guy. He's going to be a guy that brings some fun to the fan base. He's not afraid to throw the ball down the field. He is mobile. And if the worst thing about him is that he throws some interceptions, you know what? I'd rather see him take the chance and throw the ball instead of getting sacked 12 times. Anyone else? I think a lot of us agree that at this point, we'd rather just see you throw the ball, move it down the field. Interceptions are going to happen. At some point, you have to put reliance on your defense that they're going to be able to make a couple stops. And I hope that the Giants make some moves this offseason that are going to help the defense to be able to do that. But in the meantime, I love the idea of Jameis Winston. I think he's a great option if they can't bring in Justin Fields. And, I think he's going to bring some excitement and light and fun to this team where if it's going to be a losing season, at least let us have a little bit of fun. Okay? That's all I'm asking for at this point. Our final point here is back to the staff. We talk about the fact that this offseason, they kept almost everyone the same. We've got the same front office, which everyone knew was going to happen. We've got the same GM, which I think we all knew was going to happen, and the same head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator. So the only changes we are getting here are positional coaches. So we've got a new running backs coach, a new defensive backs coach. We've got a new passing game coordinator, things like that, which the reality is, how much of a difference are we going to see from this team just by replacing position coaches? Do I think it's going to be a little bit better? Am I optimistic it's going to be a little bit better? Yes. Do I think it's going to make a wild change and all of a sudden the defense is going to have, multiple interceptions and turnovers per game versus, having 4 on the whole season last year? No, I don't think that. But I do think that there was some friction with Jerome Henderson and Deonte Banks, and Deonte Banks is going nowhere. And I think when you make some changes like that, the hope is that the team is going to get better. So I really hope that that's one of the things. Now, I would have liked to see more changes on offense because I have a big problem with the fact that there's a lot of turnovers from this team. There's a lot of drop balls from the wide receivers. And in my opinion, from what I have heard and what I have seen at camps and practices, a lot of it has to do with the drills and the coaching and the fact that the coaches are not really coaching the wide receivers. And I hope that that's something that they work on this offseason. I also really hope that Brian Daboll is going to somehow be able to discipline this team so they are not one of the teams with the highest amount of penalties in the NFL. Would like to see that also change this year. So, it's not the offseason that I think a lot of us hoped for, but they can instill a little bit of faith in us as the fans by making some good offseason moves, by bringing in some talented veterans. They don't have to be the best of the best, but you got to bring in some more talent, both in free agency and the draft. And, we're going to see over the next year, was changing some of the position coaches a good move? Did it help individually these groups get a little bit better along with the talent that they brought in? We can only hope, because the reality is the fact that they didn't change the major positions, and they're going to have to live with that. And I don't really know how that's going to go. And as a fan, my excitement level is not very high right now, but it can change if they make some good moves this offseason. And, if Brian Daboll changes some of his approach to coaching, which is what I would like to see from him, then maybe, just maybe, they will instill some hope and some faith in the fan base in them. And in turn, we will see some wins. Check back for more Giants latest coming to you soon.